Good afternoon. Live from Nashville, Tennessee at the AirCargo 2020 conference, my name is Scott Case. I'm the founder and chief storyteller of Position Global. We're here for a fireside chat with Lionel of PayCargo, and we're really happy to have you here. Welcome, Lionel.
Thank you, Scott. Glad to be here with you guys.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. You know, we've known each other for a number of years now. It's been a lot of fun to just kind of see each other on the circuit. So from the South African military to fintech in Nashville, I believe as the song lyric goes, what a long, strange trip it's been. I mean, how did you find your way here?
Absolutely, and the key that you left out there, maybe you don't know it, was I was a farm boy in South Africa prior to the military. So coming to Nashville
to that, okay, you're right. Let's walk it back further.
Connect the dots, yeah. No, it's been an incredible journey for me, coming from South Africa, getting into the aviation industry through the Air Force.
Right.
And then transitioning from there to IATA, global role, Spain, Madrid, and then coming to the US, and here I am today in Nashville. Awesome.
It's a lot of fun. It's a fun story. You and I had the opportunity to meet. One of the other things that I do is I'm fortunate to be the current president of the International AirCargo Association of Chicago, and Chicago has certainly seen its series of challenges around air cargo congestion. There's going to be sessions covering it here at the conference, talking about it, a couple of different platforms, a couple of ways to kind of look at it. But airports can't build their way out of these messes. I mean, if you're an airport that's limited geographically on all four sides that you're working from, there's not a lot that you're going to be able to do to expand outwards. Yeah. You certainly can't go upwards as planes are coming in for a landing. So you have to be smarter with the facilities that you have that even take a longer time to deliver because of planning and scheduling and contracting that you have with a public entity. With that in mind, there was a really good announcement about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that the Atlanta Air Cargo community has created a community. They've been growing in prominence in Europe. I know there's people speaking on tomorrow's panels from Lionel about that and what they've done in Brussels, for instance. So Atlanta is really showing as the first air cargo community in the United States, and you're playing a role with that, as well as Kali, who are the software developer, and then certainly the Atlanta Airport Authority, who made that happen. Can you tell us where you fit in that and sort of how it came to life?
Absolutely, and when I look at these hubs and the cargo communities, I really think the US has been behind and they've been lagging what's taking place in Europe. Mm-hmm. So obviously, as we know, there's a couple of airports in Europe that have already gone down this road. So Atlanta, when they started getting involved and I saw the announcements that they're working with Schiphol and had some discussions with them, it immediately tweaked in my mind, how can PayCargo add value within that value chain? And it's very simple. PayCargo, we narrowly focused on payments. Mm-hmm. So we started speaking to Kale, to the Airports Authority, and then to Donna Mullins, who I'm sure you know very well too, yes. Right? So Donna and myself and the team, we were talking about how could we come together and see how do we facilitate the release of that cargo through quicker payments. And that's basically the role that PayCargo has. What I'm waiting to see is what's going to happen around the US, because I think Atlanta's just the start and there's going to be a race on for other airports like Miami, Dallas, etc., and hopefully Los Angeles, where I think it's much needed.
Right, so the role that you're playing within the context of that, so for people who don't understand, the number of players that are involved in successfully facilitating air cargo, both inbound and outbound from an airport, are the freight forwarders, the customs brokers, the truckers, the airlines themselves who are moving the equipment, and then the ground handler who in most cases are representing these airlines. For years, airlines represented themselves. Within the last, I'd say, 10 to 15 years, there's been consolidation because of economic decisions by the airlines to focus on ground handlers who have more nationwide buying power, system, process scheduling, and things like that. So your role in that is going to be the facilitation of payments. So it's more focused on the import because those fees are paid on the inbound side. Most of the outbound would be paid, say, as part of an airway bill fee going out. So you're focused on the arriving import, getting it out of the warehouse facilitation. Yeah,
and maybe what I can do is just explain a bit about how does that work today prior to PayCargo.
Okay.
So what you would have is forwarder basically having a shipment coming in with a specific airline at an airport, and that forwarder then, once they knew that the shipment was inbound and it was at the airport, they had to generate a payment, but they had to wait for a notice from the airline or the ground handler.
Right.
Once they get that payment ready through their internal systems, it was normally a check, and then they would have to get a courier to rush that check off to that airline because they need the cargo released
to
get it out as quickly as possible. That whole process then facilitated or caused an issue that even on the airline side, now they were waiting for a check, they get a check, they have to reconcile the check, let the people know at the airport side, and then the people at the airport side can tell the forwarder, you can come pick up your cargo. And then you can compound that with other issues, for example, storage fees, which come on if they do not pick that cargo up on time. So what PayCargo is doing is, as a fintech, we're using technology to expedite that process. And we've got an online platform, which now means that the forwarder makes a payment through our system. We front the money to the vendor, which is the airline in this case, and we then draw the money from the forwarder, and the cargo gets released immediately. So that cargo, through the facilitation of our fast payment system, gets released and it gets out there.
And then if you think about it, I mean, the way you sort of laid it out, it was really a linear, I mean, as opposed to a flow chart where where there are decisions and opportunities that can be made through it, it really was a linear if this, then that. One will not necessarily beget the other. And even as things moved, it's ironic to use the words slower in AirCargo, but as things moved more slowly, where you had recovery time, where you had 3 or 4 days worth of free time, as opposed to some places now where free time is really as low as 24 hours. I mean, the need to facilitate and accomplish this beforehand, much like a customs broker clearing the cargo before it arrives in the United States, as opposed to waiting until the cargo has arrived. The goal is to keep this moving, because the second that someone's able to get their hands on that cargo, the warehouse wants it out, the shipper or the buyer certainly wants their hands on the merchandise as well. So you're able to help make that happen.
Absolutely, and this value chain is only as strong as the weakest link, right? So from the payment side, we want to ensure that that's not the weakest link here, and that's not holding up the release of the cargo shipments, and we facilitate them through our systems. And I think this has got a huge down the road impact, not only for the airlines or for the freight forwarders who are trying to clear the space in the warehouse, but also look at the trucking side, right?
Yeah.
Trucking has got a huge problem. They cannot get their trucks onto the airport grounds as easily as they would like to get that cargo. And then when they get there, they want to make sure that they maximize their revenue management like an airline, right? They want their truck to be as full as possible, in and out, so that they can get economies of scale. And that's what everybody wants. But unfortunately, due to congestion, due to old antiquated systems and procedures, that's not the case. And that's why, if you look at it from a PayCargo perspective, that little piece that we're playing in terms of the payment has got such a huge down the line impact. And if you look at this, it's got nothing to do really about payments. It's got to do about driving the economy.
Yeah. And if you think about it, really, there's an environmental impact too to the fact that, I mean, and it's a topic that's being mentioned a number of times at the conference this year, the environmental and social governance. So we have, and I remember from my days of doing this thing operationally, you would put that check, you would put that airway bill, you would put that customs release in a bucket, a messenger would come along, take it back to some place, return it in again. So aside from the fact that you're waiting for all of this to happen in transit, which depending upon where you're at, weather could be a factor, traffic could be a factor. Certainly in some of these gateway airports, they're in crowded metropolitan areas, so traffic is going to play a role, as opposed to a smaller airport that doesn't have as much surrounding traffic. I mean, by doing this financially, we're also able to do better for the environment by getting a lot of the cause for the driving out of it. Certainly, it's bad news for the companies that were running original pieces of paper from one place to another. But if we look at it in sort of the macro environmentally, it plays better for everybody.
It does indeed, and I think taking all that paper out, people don't realize how much paper is still involved within our industry.
Oh yeah.
And then, as you say, it's not only the paper, it's the cost of fuel, transporting the paper to get those checks to wherever they have to go. There's so much more to it. But this is, once again, I want to get back to that point about, this is what we do drives the economies of the countries that we work in, right?
Right.
If you had to stop air cargo or ocean cargo tomorrow and somebody flipped that switch and it just stopped, imagine life and how life changes. You look at air cargo, and I had a really good campaign a couple of years ago where they talked about air cargo saving lives. I mean, the air cargo we bring in, and if it's medication, it's critical. We have to get it through that warehouse as quickly because somebody's busy dying. They need their medication.
Right.
If we do not have these systems and procedures and we're not working to continuously expedite that release of the cargo, you've got somebody's life that's at stake. It's the same on Mother's Day. That's more the sort of nicer side of it.
Right, yeah.
But we want to get those flowers to our wives, to our mothers, to our girlfriends.
Yeah.
That is important, and that's all facilitated through cargo, and people do not see that. And I really would like to emphasize the fact that I'd like to see cargo being recognized more for what we do in the economy, so that even if you look at an airline,
right,
when we're looking at implementing and getting funds to do these technological projects, that they're being made available. AirCargo tends to be sort of the black sheep in a sense sometimes.
And you sat, I mean, and you sat there.
Change,
you sat there in your position as well with CNS, where you have to deal with the demand. I shouldn't say demands. Where you have to deal with the challenges that the passenger airlines are concerned about, because they're concerned about what's happening upstairs where the passengers are riding. But conversely, you've also got that down below spot, because in a lot of times, cargo can make or break the profitability of a route. So when you hear an airline announcing we're going to do a new route, we're going to deploy this aircraft on this thing, the calculation that's gone into that is not just the number of passengers that are interested flying between those two geographic points, it's also the amount of cargo and commerce that can then get carried. The revenue that gets made from that is going to help contribute to the overall profitability of the flight and the decision to keep moving.
Agreed 100%. And I think, once again, that's overlooked. A lot of people do not pay attention to that. And especially what we need to do a better job of is making sure that everybody working in the value chain understands that.
Yeah.
Because if you're just doing your little piece in the value chain without thinking about the bigger impact and the bigger social good that you're bringing along with that, you're not as passionate as you should be in that role.
And without calling anybody out, because that's not what this is meant to be. I mean, these are real, frank discussions that people are having. I think that, for instance, a really big innovation now that's happening right now as well that everybody's seeing in airlines and just in air cargo in the last year has been the issue of dynamic pricing. So we're going to hear, I'm sure, at some point in the next couple of days as well about machine learning, AI, some of the machine learning, that data aggregation, that data information that is coming to people to make those informed decisions. So airlines are looking to price cargo the same way that you would price a ticket. I mean, when I did this back when dinosaurs walked the earth, I had a binder about yay thick, and every couple of weeks or every quarter, somebody would come by with a new rate sheet, and then it went from the paper rate sheet to here comes your spreadsheet, an Excel issued quarterly with the different service levels and tiers. And now we're to the point now, they're going to do yield management based on weather factors, based on demand factors, based on your record possibly as a shipper and how you've done with them. So there's a lot more intelligence that's being brought to bear, and we have to, as an industry and within the air cargo context, catch up to it. Why do you think it is that air cargo, to use the Rodney Dangerfieldism, never got any respect or doesn't get as much respect? And do you see that changing?
I think it will change over time if we make a concerted effort to bring this to the forefront. And it's people like Mike White, it's like Brandon Freed, it's conferences like this, where you really got people putting that spotlight on what it is. But I think it needs to go further. It needs to be more out there. We need to be speaking to kids at schools.
Yes.
Help them to understand when they get that new iPhone, when they get excited about something coming their way on Christmas. You know, how does that all happen? They don't think about it. All they think about is the self-gratification when they get that actual item, and not the value chain and what has all made this possible. But I truly think that even the industry as we know it today is antiquated, and I think we're all at risk. Google is coming, Amazon is coming. There's a lot of change heading our way, and the pace of change and technology is a lot quicker than it was a couple of years ago. So if we do not all wake up, and even a fintech company like PayCargo, I believe we're at the forefront, and we are a trusted provider within that space because we use all these top technologies to do what we do.
Right.
Tomorrow we could become irrelevant. So we have to constantly be watching the horizon to see what's out there and how do we change. And then most importantly, listen to the customers to understand what's the real value add to them and how do we bring that value.
No, you're absolutely right about that. So we've talked about how FreightWaves, we've talked about how PayCargo fits into all this stuff. We're here for FreightWaves. We've talked about how PayCargo fits into all this, the value proposition that you're offering. So as the company looks ahead to 2020, obviously you're no stranger to living on an airplane. What does your 2020 have you going around either traveling or doing, and just sort of what are PayCargo's plans for 2020 to further advance what you're doing for the industry?
Okay, so 2020, my small part within PayCargo is I'm heading up the Americas. We're going to be focusing heavily on taking what we've built and we're starting to get now a huge amount of traction. I mean, if you have a look at our company right now, we've done processed about $2 billion through the machine. We're sitting with about 19,000 users on the payer side. On the vendor side, we're about 4,800 users. We're adding about 560 odd payers in a month, and then about 100.
It's a good adoption rate.
And 112 vendor users a month. So when you look at that, it's really growing. But with that growth also comes risk, right? So you have to make sure that you've got the processes and procedures in place to manage all of that and make sure that you have the best possible, and this is for us a corporate priority, to have that customer service there that really makes a difference, where we're not only listening to what people are saying, but thinking forwardly, as I said, looking at these technologies and how can we better serve them. So that is one thing, bringing that and taking that and building and tweaking this machine, bringing on new employees and growing the business. Canada is another strategic priority for us. So we've been operating in Canada, but on US dollar terms.
Okay.
So we're busy. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching Canadian dollars, and that is big. I think that's a huge market. There's a big need for payment services, specifically on the import side that we focus on. So we're really excited about that. And
especially as Canada grows with their membership in the TPP, their traffic is picking up that we don't necessarily think about here.
And there you touch on the next one. So Mexico is the other part of that equation, right? Part of North America. So we'll be looking at Mexico to see what is it that we can do there, and what sort of partners can we meet up with and work with. That is a key thing for us, is we see ourselves as an open, collaborative platform. We're always looking for good partners to work with, and that's why we've integrated with almost everybody in the industry, be it Champ, be it IBS, who we're speaking with now, Unisys that we're working with, Carle, etc. So I think it's really important to get to that point where we can have this open system that everybody in the value chain benefits from.
Wonderful. Well, Lionel, we really do appreciate you being here. We appreciate you taking the time for this fireside chat. My name is Scott Case with Position Global. We're here from the AirCargo 2020 conference. And coming up next is Tim Dooner speaking with Glenn Patton, the VP of Business Development from Roanoke Insurance Group. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.